This is an absolutely wonderful lecture from what I know of visiting it many, many years ago, and from Angela's description, which you all got. It's a tale, an extraordinary tale of survival despite all. It's really an absolutely extraordinary monument, not least because of its designer, and secondly, the fact that it was an All-Ireland one, and thirdly, that it is so spectacular, so beautiful a place to visit. If you can say such a place that is in commemoration or in the memory of war and all the cost and death caused by war. This wonderful peaceful garden is more than extraordinary. And I'm absolutely delighted that we have Angela to give us a presentation on it. And if there was ever a space that we can call contested cultural heritage in Ireland, this is surely one. Angela is a former architect with the OPW, and she is a board member of ICOMOS, and she has kindly agreed to give us this presentation this evening. Thank you, Angela.
But thank you, Fidelma. Oops, I'm going.
You're going a little bit, yeah.
Yes, good evening. And the only other thing I should say is that I'm a local resident, and hence my
oh, excellent
love of this place.
Yeah.
So, good evening, everybody. And I will, just in case you don't know, the Irish National War Memorial Gardens are located in Islandbridge on the west side of Dublin. It's a permanent memorial to 50,000 Irishmen from north and south of the border who died in the Great War or the First World War, depending on your point of view. In July 1919, 2 weeks after the Treaty of Versailles was signed, and at the start of the War of Independence, over 100 people attended a meeting chaired by Sir John French, the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, the gentleman second from the left, at the Viceregal Lodge in the Phoenix Park, now Ars Neutron. A memorial committee was appointed to raise funds to create a memorial to commemorate the Irish war dead. A standing committee was chaired by Sir Dunbar Plunkett Barton, the fellow with the spy cartoon there in the middle. He was an Anglo-Irish British politician, with Andrew Jemison, senator and chair of Jemison Whiskey Distillery, as the chairman. So really, they were the three key people. £50,000 was raised by public donations within a few years, and as an interim measure, 7 books were commissioned listing the names of every Irish soldier who had been lost in the war. Ireland's memorial records contain the names in 3,200 pages in 8 volumes. These books were compiled and designed and produced during one of Ireland's most turbulent periods, the Irish War of Independence, 1919 to 1921, the formation of the Irish Free State, followed by the Civil War, 1920-1923. This presentation has been recycled from a presentation I gave to the Lutyens Trust America, so it's going into probably a little bit more detail than you need to know in terms of Irish history. The very best were involved in the production, including Harry Clark, the book illustrator and stained glass artist, who was commissioned to decorate the book. He created 7 design silhouettes of military scenes mixed with drawings in black ink from Celtic mythology to form a setting for each page. The title page of Ireland's memorial records, that's the image on the left, contains images and symbols of Ireland. To the left and right are the crests of the provinces. The top border has a simple, small memorial cross, and the bottom shows female personification of Ireland with an Irish wolfhound by her side. Flanking her are a Celtic cross and a ruined abbey with a round tower. 200 copies of the memorial records were printed in 1923 at a cost of £5,000. Apart from the set of memorial records held in the book rooms at the War Memorial Gardens in Dublin, there are 24 sets of memorial records known to be in public buildings and churches throughout the whole island of Ireland, and a further 10 copies in several countries, including the British Library and Imperial War Museum in London, in the Flanders Fields Museum in Belgium, the Vatican City Library, the Library of Congress, Washington, USA, and the Australian War Memorial Research Centre in Canberra, Australia. However, a location for a permanent memorial to house these books was more difficult. Several proposals, including a monument in Merrion Square, a new commemorative entrance archway to the Phoenix Park, were considered, then rejected by the Irish Free State government. In 1924, it was reported that 20,000 veterans and a crowd of 50,000 gathered at College Green outside the main gate of Trinity College for the 11th of November Remembrance Day ceremony. From 1926, the government granted permission to the British Legion Irish Free State area to erect a temporary cross beside the Wellington Monument in the Phoenix Park. Records show that ex-servicemen attended 11 a.m. Mass at Pro Cathedral and then marched to the Phoenix Park for speeches and 2 minutes of silence. Each year, the British Legion invited the President of the Executive Council, head of the Free State, now the Taoiseach, to lay a wreath, and each year the invitation was declined. By 1929, it was reported that the numbers attending the Remembrance Day ceremonies had dropped to about 10,000 ex-servicemen and a crowd of about 9,000. During the 1930s, the ceremonies attracted skirmishes with anti-treaty forces, the irregulars, causing disturbances, and following pressure from the Gardaí, the government imposed restrictions on the sale of Flanders poppies and the display of Union flag and military-like marching. There was a growing awareness of a need for a suitable location for people to gather to mark Remembrance Day. In 1929, Andrew Jemison, treasurer of the Memorial Committee, asked W.T. Cosgrave, head of Free State government, that a portion of land in the Phoenix Park be allocated for the memorial. Cosgrave then asked the Office of Public Works for any suitable lands adjacent to the Phoenix Park. And at a cabinet meeting on the 29th of September 1929, Thomas J. Byrne, principal architect of the OPW, presented a suitable site to accommodate the annual Remembrance Day ceremonies. And here you see an image of the Longmeadow site outlined on this map, extending from Islandbridge in the east to almost Chapel Lizard in the west, on both sides of the Liffey, and crossing the Great Southern and Western Railway at this point here. So it crosses the railway, this is the railway, with the main entrance on Inchicore Road here. And you can just see the red cross here, which is the memorial plot, is marked with a red cross. So that was the area that was to be assigned to the War Memorial. The government approved this proposed site and promised extra funds for a public park. So the notion was that the memorial here in this area would be within a public park on either side of the Liffey. This is an aerial view of the east end of Longmeadows in 1918, actually photographed by the Royal Ethos. I found no record of the appointment of Edwin Lutyens or the brief for the War Memorial. However, Sir Dunbar Plunkett Barton and Andrew Jemison may have met Lutyens through his Irish clients and projects. Hayward Gardens in County Laois, 1906 to 1912, Lambay Island, 1905 to 1912, and Howth Castle, 1910 to 1911. And of course, his proposals for a Dublin art gallery for the Hugh Lane collection. That was 1912 to 1913. Andrew Jemison was a collector of Irish art and a supporter of the Hugh Lane's Dublin Art Gallery. In addition, Lutyens was particularly experienced in the design of war memorials and cemeteries, and was at the peak of his career in 1929. His work at New Delhi was nearing completion, for which he received knighthood, and he'd just been appointed architect for Liverpool Cathedral. In 1930, Lutyens came to Ireland to inspect the Long Meadows for the first time, and he met W.T. Cosgrave, who was suitably impressed by his reputation. Lutyens prepared a design which was forwarded to T.J. Byrne, who compiled a lengthy report and an estimate of cost, which he presented to government the following year. Byrne's role was to be critical in the successful collaboration of this very sensitive project. These images are photographic copies of 3 initial drawings for the War Memorial Gardens. Sadly, the original drawings have been lost. T.J. Byrne recommended Lutyens' design to government in November, and a scale model was commissioned. Unfortunately, that's been lost too. Lutyens' design for the War Memorial was approved by the Free State government in July 1931, and Sir Dunbar Plunkett Barton was later to recall, as the designer of our memorial, we selected Sir Edwin Lutyens, who we are not alone in deeming the first architect of the age. His masterpieces are among the chief ornaments of Great Britain and of India, as well as of Ireland. So you can see Sir Dunbar was very much still of the other side of the Irish Sea. This OPW drawing shows the extent of the first preliminary phase for the public park, which began in late 1931, employing an equal number of ex-soldiers from both the British Army and the Irish National Army. Controversially, Irish funds for the scheme were being drawn from the budget allocated to unemployment relief works, which was designed to tide over agricultural workers during the winter and to slow down migration. To ensure the maximum amount of labour available, the men worked mostly with manual tools, with only 1 steamroller and 2 concrete mixers. Landscaping works included the filling of old gravel pits, converting cart tracks into metalled roads, reducing steep slopes and hollows, making new entrances of the park east and west of the linear park site. In late 1933, the levelling and regrading of the north-facing Liffey Valley started in preparation for the construction of the War Memorial. The Articles of Agreement between the Memorial Committee and the Minister of Finance of the Free State was signed in 1933. The linear park was to be funded by government and the War Memorial by the National War Memorial Trust, each paying £50,000. Sir Edwin Lutyens designed the main ceremonial entrance on Inchicore Road, with the new road between the colonnaded bridge over the railway lines, leading onto the horseshoe road bordering the ceremonial lawn and the symmetrical rose gardens. He created a strong central access via a series of step terraces leading to the Memorial Cross, the Great War Stone in the centre, and in the centre of the ceremonial lawn, and the temple leading to a second bridge over the River Liffey and Cunningham Road into the Phoenix Park. So these are the first of a selection of Lutyens' drawings in the Office of Public Works Library. The original drawings show his finely honed detailed designs for the memorial and are a testament to his care and attention to detail. Many of the photographs in this presentation are by Annie Dibble and feature in our recent publication, Shadows and Reflections. So here are the drawings of the book room, and in fact the drawing on the left is an enormous double imperial drawing. It's a full-size section of the hidden gutter on the book rooms. And let's go on. So I just go through lots of pretty photos of the reflecting pool, the pagoda between the book rooms. This is a drawing showing the steps down from the horseshoe road and the cascade of steps down to the cross. And here are some photos of the cross. Lutyens recycled many elements of the design from his earlier country house and gardens and cemeteries and memorials. Here in the Memorial Gardens. So on the right, you see some crosses that are local memorials in England. So it's a very similar cross, but using different plinths, different stone. And here we have drawings of the fountains. And there again, here's the fountain on the left is in Dublin, and the two on the right, it's the Royal Naval Division in London and in New Delhi. So they're all at different scale, but it's recycling. It's the same ideas. And this drawing shows the central focal point of the, so the symmetry is the line on this side here. This is the Great Wallstone, the cross there, the fountain, the circular pool, lining up with the rose garden, with the lily pond, going through the center of the pergola, the paths and the steps at 45 degrees. So literally south, north, southwest, and then there's out of this side, you've gone to the northwest, and that is replicated on the other side. So in 1917, Edwin Lutyens recommended that each cemetery and memorial, hang on, I'm on the wrong slide. So here's the Rose Garden in the War Memorial Gardens, and a very similar garden with Rose Garden with a pond in the middle at Hayward, County Leash. So this is a drawing dated actually 1918 or 1917. In 1917, Edwin Lutyens recommended that each cemetery and memorial, whether in Europe, Asia, or Africa, should have one large non-denominational monument, and that it should be known as the Great Wallstone. He strongly believed the structure should be, and this is a quoting from him, for all time and for all men of all creeds, and that they were to be all equally deserving, enduring record. He specified that the stone should in all cases be selected from a local quarry, and that it should be take the form of one great fair stone of fine proportions. It's 12 foot long, and in fact, none of the verticals are quite vertical, and none of the everything is done with entasis. So there's a, I can't remember the radius of the circle, but it was laid out so that it was very slightly curved. Lutyens intended that the great wallstones would act as the focus of the cemetery or memorial in a vast cathedral scale plan whose vaulted ceiling is the sky. There again is another quote. Lutyens was working on his last great commission, the Roman Catholic Cathedral in Liverpool, while designing the Irish National War Memorial Gardens. Although work on the crypts commenced in 1933, the project was abandoned in 1941. The central lawn of the War Memorial Gardens is enclosed within retaining walls, the pergolas and trees, lending a sense of interior to a vast building, and it resembles a theatrical stage, with the audience on the slope on the south side observing the Remembrance Day ceremony on the ceremonial lawn. And there it is, photographed. And the stonework is luscious. These are just a few images of the stonework, both the limestone rubble walls, beautifully executed, designed for plants to grow within, the curved steps against the rubble walls. It's beautifully done. And even the design of stone and timber benches continues the elemental approach that Lutyens brought. So the use of materials here. He recognized the particularly robust quality of the local granite wasn't suitable for carving. Lutyens sort of treats it in a far more creative way and softer form. And there's an extraordinary generous number of benches at the Memorial Gardens, particularly around the Rose Gardens. It was envisaged as a place of contemplation. And there it is. So there are many of them there. The temple, the unexecuted design for the temple is one of Lutyens' more eccentric, unrealized designs. The central post is almost like a totem pole, and it's a very complex, almost vernacular oak, circular columns supporting a chevron roof, decorated almost tent-like group. It echoes some of his earlier designs at Homewood, I'm told, where a classical element breaks out of a gentler vernacular surroundings. The exact intention remains unclear, except to say that, you know, it's very surprising. It does have seats there again, timber seats, but it's most exotic. And the plan for the paving as well was very exotic. And then, of course, the bridge, the design of the bridge, which was to connect the gardens with the Phoenix Park, was never carried out. It is an understated masonry structure and was to provide the link between the two parts without calling undue attention to itself. And it's similar to one of his designs at Runnymede and the Hampton Court Palace, both of which have this low balustrade and stone dressings. Oops. In the mid-1930s, Andrew Jemison formed a subcommittee to advise on the planting of the park and gardens laid out to Lutyens' design, and members were the current and retired superintendents of the Botanic Gardens and Phoenix Park. And they ordered and planted yew hedges around the sunken rose garden, cherry trees, Cornish elms, poplar, birch, acers, and maples, as preferred by Lutyens, and set out in military formation and avenues. 4,000 rose bushes of 9 different varieties were planted in the rose gardens by the Phoenix Park staff. In 1935, Lutyens inspected the works and was pleased with what had been accomplished under the weekly supervision of T.J. Byrne, who visited the site every Saturday for the whole 5 years of construction period. There must have been extensive correspondence between Lutyens and Byrne between 1931 and 1938, but I don't know where it exists or if it exists at all. OPW files seem to have disappeared. Work ceased in February 1938 when funding for the memorial ran out, before the project was complete. The main entrance at the junction of Inchicore Road, the Memorial Road, the granite colonnade bridge over the Great Southern Western Railway, the temple and the masonry bridge across the Liffey all had to be omitted. Under pressure from the British Legion, a formal opening was planned for the 30th of July, 1939. However, rumours of war caused De Valera, now the head of the Free State government, to abandon this planned event. Remembrance Day ceremonies with limited access finally took place in the Irish National War Memorial Gardens in 1940 and continued annually until 1970. In the late 1940s, the OPW produced a modified design for the completion of Lutyens' original designs, including the main ceremonial entrance at the south end of the main access, the railway bridge, and 2 lodges either side here, which were for the gardeners and constables, but only a very modest bridge over the railway line was constructed. The slow decline and isolation of the war memorial started in the 1950s when Dublin Corporation decided to build a road connecting the new suburb of Ballyfermot to the city centre. and you can see the aerial photo on the right, the road being constructed, and you can see the area here at the bottom, which were allotments and fields and a dump. You can quite clearly see the horseshoe road surrounding the memorial there. During the IRA campaign, border campaign, a bomb was placed at the base of the Memorial Cross on Christmas Day 1956, and then they did it again on Christmas Day 1958. The damage was repaired by the OPW. The first 1936, it cost £30, and the second attempt it only cost £5 to repair. In addition, the OPW gave a 99-year lease to Dublin Corporation on a section of the linear park west of the War Memorial to develop as a public park, which we're still waiting for. So all the area towards the bottom of that aerial photo was leased to the corporation. In the 1970s and 80s, there was a lapse in activity in the Memorial Committee, which coincided with the reduction of OPW staff in the gardens. In 1969, there had been 12 staff, but by 1987, there were only 3. The park deteriorated, the walls were covered in graffiti, the staff quarters had been burnt down and abandoned, and the paths and the lawns used for racing cars and horses. A storm in 1986 added to the destruction of the planting, and the site was in a sorry state. The memorial gardens are still not immune from occasional graffiti, which the OPW staff remove almost immediately, as you can see with the image on the right there. That was just a couple of years ago. Okay, a new memorial committee reconvened in 1985, and it was agreed that they would fence around the memorial site and the OPW would restore the structures and gardens within it. The works carried out included the repair and refurbishment of all the footpaths, the restoration of the book rooms, granite and timber pergolas, the fountains, lily ponds, and a provision of a new car park down beside the Trinity Boat Club. The engraving of "Their name liveth forevermore" on the Great Stone was actually added at that time, and 1914 to 1980 on the Memorial Cross was finally completed. The gardens were formally opened in September 1988, 50 years after they were actually completed. There were many security concerns. The previous November had seen the Remembrance Day bombing in Enniskillen in Northern Ireland. And although anti-extradition protesters interrupted the formal opening, it was attended by a number of ambassadors, representatives of the main churches, and the Deputy Lord Mayor of Dublin, but no ministerial representatives were present, which was noted in the press. Although the Memorial Gardens was restored by 1990, it was further severely compromised by the construction of a dual carriageway, which sliced off the top of the Horseshoe Road, positioned the Memorial Road outside the park, and cut off the gardens from the community. You can see at the bottom here how they damaged the horseshoe, and although they put large gates, it's a complete mockery, because in order to get in there, you have to cross the dual carriageway. There's a little side gate there to get in. In 1992, the Memorial Committee approved plans for an alternative temple. The Lutchens' original design was considered impractical at the time, particularly as the roof was to be made of lead. And this is a relatively cheap structure comprising reconstituted stone columns and a side glass dome. And with the extract from a 1914 sonnet, "Safety" by Rupert Brooke, set in the floor tiles. It's pretty awful when you think of it in terms of the quality of the stonework of the main memorial. However, it does serve to mark the north end of the main axis, and acts as a reminder about the proposed Lutchens Bridge. And at this time, 1939 to 1945, was also carved onto the memorial cross to commemorate Irishmen who died during the Second World War. The temple was completed in 1993 and formally unveiled by the then Minister of Finance, Bertie Ahern, the following year. Teak Lutchens benches funded by the Irish Guards were installed. They quickly suffered from vandalism and were removed. Some were repaired and given to Leopardstown Park Hospital. OPW fabricated and installed painted steel replicas in their place, which are pretty grim, but they're still there. The Irish War Memorial was designated as a protected structure by Dublin City Council in 2000. And the first ceremony to commemorate the war dead that was attended by an Taoiseach took place in 2006. In the past 2 decades, the Irish National War Memorial Gardens has become the focus of commemorations for the centenary of the Great War, specifically the Battle of the Somme and the armistice on the 11th of November 1918. In 2011, it was the key location on the official visit itinerary of Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen and President McAleese attended a service of remembrance and wreath-laying ceremony at the War Memorial Gardens. And on the same day, there was a reciprocal event at the Garden of Remembrance in Parnell Square, which commemorates those who died for Irish independence. It has been a long-time ambition of the Memorial Committee, Dublin City Council and the Office of Public Works to complete Lutchens Plan and erect a bridge that would connect the Irish War Memorial Gardens to the Phoenix Park. A design competition was held to mark the 150th anniversary of Lutchens' birth. Submissions were received from 61 architecture practices from 9 countries. The competition winning design for a new commemorative bridge is by Ian Ritchie. This is Ian Ritchie's second major competition win in Ireland, having previously designed the spire to mark the millennium. The winning bridge design is a slender curve of stainless steel, which, unlike Lutchens' proposed masonry bridge, will have a minimum impact on the flora and fauna and be accessible for all. A planning application was expected to be lodged before the end of last year. We're still waiting for that. The Office of Public Works Heritage Services continue to manage and maintain, and some of our guests here do as well, to a high standard that befits a National Historic Park. They work in cooperation with the trustees of the Irish National War Memorial Gardens Committee and facilitate annual Remembrance Day events in cooperation with British Legion Ireland. I believe that the Irish National War Memorial Gardens represent a synthesis of the breadth and quality of buildings and cultural landscapes that Lutchens produced during his extraordinarily prolific architectural career. The Irish War Memorial Gardens, as probably his last completed public project, demonstrates his use of local materials, quality craftsmanship, and beautiful planting honed during the design and adaptation of many small country houses and its cemeteries and memorials. The layout and built structures are inspired by logical classicism, which he'd employed in his large country houses and public buildings, expressed in the formality of the symmetry of the layout of New Delhi. The overall sense of place is informed by Lutchens' empathy and humanism, which he captured in the careful dignity of cemeteries and memorials, and which demonstrated his response to the chaos and suffering he'd witnessed when he visited the Western Front in 1917. It continues to have an important role bringing together people from north and south of the island and east and west of the Irish Sea. During the past few years, the Memorial Gardens have been rediscovered by the local community and the wider population of Ireland. And just as a plug, in 1929, Annie Dibble, who's a textile artist, photographer, a friend of mine, and I invited 10 local female writers, poets, and artists to contribute personal reflections evoked by the Memorial Gardens for our book, Shadows and Reflections. It was our intention to raise awareness of the gardens and add to the rich history and significance. President Michael D. Higgins very kindly wrote the foreword, and one of the very wonderful things that he said, the Irish National War Memorial Gardens remind us of these difficult matters and encourage us to face up to complex aspects of our past. Shadows and reflections help us to transact that history as we seek to engage with our past through a process of ethical recall that strives to nurture memory and remembrance as a solid basis for a shared and inclusive future. That's it.
Thank you very much, Angela.